for trusted, effective solutions. Available at Pennywise and leading pharmacies nationwide. Feel better, move better, live better with Aja Nutrition.
Things don't always go as expected. Be ready with Trinry for auto, home, business and group life. Call us at 800-TRIN or visit trinry.com today. Huge insurance premium. Pay your premiums bit by bit with FlexiPay from Trinry. For more manageable auto, home and commercial insurance payments, call us at 800-TRIN or visit trinry.com today. Trinry. Premier insurance coverage for less.
Government faces backlash for endorsing U.S.-Israeli strikes on Iran during Ramadan. Biche pushes back against crime label, says joblessness lies at the heart of its struggles. Two co-members call for emergency meeting over Calypso judging and executive management concerns.
Coming up in sport, West Indies post 195, but Samson's 97 breaks Caribbean hearts.
Good evening, I'm Doris Polo and this is the Weekend News here on CNC3. In our top story, calls tonight for urgent consultation with the Muslim community as controversy deepens over the government's shifting position on U.S.-Israeli strikes against Iran. Activist Nafisa Mohammed is urging Prime Minister Kamala Persad-Bissessar to meet with Islamic leaders before her scheduled talks with U.S. President Donald Trump later this week. Jensen Levend reports.
Activist Nafisa Mohammed is calling on Prime Minister Kamala Persad-Bissessar to meet with leaders of the various Islamic groups ahead of her meeting with U.S. President Donald Trump later this week.
At this time, I am of the view that there ought to be a very urgent meeting of the leadership of the Muslim community, and perhaps our two representatives who are there in the parliament can take the opportunity.
The request comes after government retracted a media release in which it first supported both the U.S. and Israel's attack against Iran, only to drop its support for Israel. Mohammed says the attack against Iran during the month of Ramadan is disturbing, but the withdrawal of support for Israel sends a message.
It is now viral on the internet, and it shows us certain level of flip-flopping, and that is why I'm suggesting that there be a meeting of the mind.
Political leader of the National Transformation Alliance, Lieutenant Commander Norman Dindial, says the withdrawal of support for Israel is an example of the class teacher pet syndrome, with the government pandering to its U.S. masters. He adds supporting the attack against Iran is supporting a breach of international law. Director of Caribbean Development Research Services Peter Wickham agrees, saying the Prime Minister's open support of the U.S. President could backfire.
Once Trump has her back, she has his back, she'll be fine for the time being. The reality, however, is that Trump will be there forever.
But political analyst Derek Ramsey-Mouch says while the attack during the holy month of Ramadan is a sensitive issue, the government may not face a political backlash for its support.
However, you would have some sort of social fallout, not necessarily today, but in the coming weeks and months. We must clearly understand what are the options Iran's leadership will play in this conflict.
And leader of the Patriotic Front says clarity is needed on the impact this decision may have on the country.
When energy prices increase, when shipping costs increase, and ultimately when the price of food and fuel increase right here at home. We all know in a small economy like ours, global shocks are felt quickly and they are felt painfully. That is why it is important for the government to clarify and explain its position.
CNC3 News reached out to the Prime Minister. However, up to news time, there was no response. When contacted, Foreign Affairs Minister Sean Sobers said he was in a meeting but promised to respond to the change in position and concerns raised about the timing of the support. We will share his comments once received. Jensen Lavende, CNC3 News.
Well, the energy minister says this country is looking to cash in on the unrest in the Middle East. Energy Minister Dr. Rudal Munilal says while the conflict drives up energy costs worldwide, Atlantic LNG has already adjusted its pricing structure to include an oil component to LNG prices, resulting in additional revenue. But former Energy Minister Stuart Young is hitting back. He says the extra money is a, quote, temporary band-aid. He points to the country having lost hundreds of millions in revenue from the closure of Nutrien, and government is yet to provide an update, which he offers as proof our energy industry is struggling. Chief Secretary Fali Augustine says the THA will remain neutral and amid military conflict in the Middle East. He says until Tobago has full autonomy, it remains a silent spectator.
Tobago will continue to stay out of big people's business, and we will continue to mind Tobago's business and mind our business. Chief among those is the issue of our autonomy, which we're trying to get dealt with at this time. But again, we continue to adopt a position of neutrality on these global issues. Who want to fight who? That's their business. We're not in that. That is their business. Who want to remove whom? That is also their business, not my business.
On tensions closer to home, Augustine reiterated his position of non-alignment, but says the Prime Minister was right to challenge CARICOM on democracy being absent in Cuba. And as government expresses support for the U.S. in its action against Iran, we asked citizens whether they agree with Trinidad and Tobago's stance. Here's what you had to say.
The People Say, brought to you by Excel Health TT, the official supplement of the CPL.
No. We shouldn't meddle in that.
No, I am not at all pleased with that at all. You kill a president in your house to sleep in. That's not making sense. What sense that make? That is just a waste of time for that. It's not making no sense supporting them kind of thing.
And we agree that.
Why?
We far from that?
No, not really at all. I don't. It's because I think we are a Caribbean island, and certain things we need to just focus on when it comes to our country and the running of our country.
Yes, that is her duty to take a stand on behalf of it. So she have to do what her part is.
No, not really. Because it don't really concern us.
The People Say, brought to you by Excel Health TT, the official supplement of the CPL.
While stakeholders are optimistic about the Prime Minister's upcoming meeting with U.S. President Donald Trump, she's being warned that access is not achievement. International relations expert Professor Andy Knight says Prasad Bisese is being rewarded for her loyalty, and he warns this meeting is likely to benefit her more than it would TNT or CARICOM. Regional security expert Dr. Garvin Hero says it is important that the Prime Minister firmly enters the discussion, emphasizing this country's strengths based on its geographic and economic position within the region and its advantage as an energy-based economy. But Professor Knight warns she must do so with the understanding that TNT is stronger within CARICOM, not outside it.
I think the Caribbean's leverage has historically come from unity and principled multilateralism, from the rules-based system of the international community. And if bilateral action, such as what Kamala Prasad Bisese has done in gaining access to the president, comes at the expense of regional cohesion, I think this would be detrimental to the CARICOM. It would also be detrimental in the long term to Trinidad and Tobago.
But the Tobago Hotel and Tourism Association says they enthusiastically welcome this meeting and want the Prime Minister to place security and safety as a priority area for assistance, since negative travel advisories and the country spending most of last year in a state of emergency hurt the sector. The Shogunas Chamber is similarly excited and hopes the Prime Minister can argue for smoother business transactions between the two countries.
We have seen that our tariff has gone down to 10%, which is amongst the lowest in the U.S. trading partners. And again, because most of the exports that we do is to the U.S. It makes us competitive on two ways. One, the tariff is extremely low. And then when you look at the advantage that we have over countries with higher tariffs, it means that all goods could enter the U.S. at a much lower price.
While he concedes it's not likely she could convince the U.S. president to completely remove our tariffs, Maharaj says the Prime Minister has already reaped national security benefits for this country because of her support of the U.S. military action in Caribbean waters. Coming up next, a file on a controversial matter goes missing from a government ministry. We'll have those details and much more when we come back.
Struggling with blood sugar swings, high blood pressure, or stiff joints? Take control with Aja Nutrition's powerful wellness trio. Berberine Plus supports healthy blood sugar. Blood pressure support helps keep your pressure in check. And Joint Aid keeps your joints moving so you can stay active every day. Don't wait. Choose Aja Nutrition for trusted, effective solutions. Available at Pennywise and leading pharmacies nationwide. Feel better, move better, live better with Aja Nutrition.
Recession have you down? Don't lose hope. Head on down to Tire Clinic for the recession deals. That should big savings with our road hazard warranty on Dunlop, Sumitomo, and Falcon tires. Available at Tire Clinic, Cuba, Chaguanas, and Plaisance Park. Tire Clinic, a tire for every need. Call 636-8973 or 636-2958.
Are you tired of the same old boring drive home from work? Look no further. Get ready for the ultimate after-work rush with Freedom 106.5 FM's The Overdrive with Davey. Mondays to Fridays from 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. Let Davey take you on a thrilling ride of non-stop entertainment and education. He covers the topics of the day, delves into the latest food and lifestyle trends, and brings dynamic guests from exciting professions to share their professional stories and experiences. Take advantage of this energizing and engaging experience. Tune into Freedom 106.5 FM, Mondays to Fridays, 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. for The Overdrive with Davey, the ultimate way to end your day with a bang.
Welcome back. The state's file on firearms dealer Brent Thomas has gone missing. Defense Minister Wayne Sturge would only confirm it could not be found. CNC3 News was advised this government requested the file soon after they were installed, and that's when they discovered it missing. It had been lodged at the former Ministry of National Security, now Homeland Security. Former National Security Minister Marvin Gonzalez says the file never crossed his desk because it was already before the courts. The substantive minister in the previous administration, Fitzgerald Hines, declined to respond. In September, the Attorney General announced that the state was dropping the matter. The matter was reignited during CARICOM's opening ceremony when Prime Minister Prasad Bisesa described his forced removal from Barbados as a kidnapping, which Barbadian Prime Minister Mia Mottley described as a scurrilous lie. But Prasad Bisesa says her statements are based on the High Court's ruling on the matter. She says government is considering a commission of inquiry into the incident. Biche has long carried a reputation as a marijuana growing district, geographically isolated, occasionally appearing in crime reports. But inside the village, residents say their real struggle is not violence. It is limited resources, jobs, survival. Elizabeth Gonzalez reports.
Biche sits between Sangre Grande to the north, Rio Claro to the south, and Manzanella to the east. Police described it as isolated.
The most you would have gotten in that area basically used to be marijuana production, right? I mean, there has been little to no crime in Biche over the many years.
Public records show 8 homicide victims across 7 incidents between 2009 and 2023. 4 murders were reported in or near the village over the past decade. For years, large-scale marijuana eradication exercises have shaped livelihoods here. But while criminal activity has eased, stable jobs never replace the income that once disappeared. In Biche, survival often comes down to planting, harvesting, and turning crops into cash, sometimes in the shadows, sometimes in the open. Marijuana eradication exercises saw millions of dollars worth of crops destroyed in 2018 and 2019. But walk through the community and the conversation changes. Not on crime, but on employment.
Father, I tell you, we see no problem in this community because even the youths and them, they don't have no job, right? And then you have people, it's countryside, they live in, let me say, Biche is a country, right? You might only have money for a man, but they work out to people work every day. When you have to go in the grocery, you understand? When you have to go and pay grocery and pay bills, everything is money.
He warns about food security.
Because right now, 99% of the grocery, the things in the grocery, important. What local we have, we get a disaster, there's only one week ration. We don't have no backup in agriculture.
When asked about the village's past reputation,
I was once upon a time. But to tell you the truth, drugs go on in Biche. Nothing like drugs in Biche again.
At 89, Shafina Khan has lived here since 1960. No electricity, dirt roads, cutting bush by hand.
Crime, you have no crime inside here, no, they are quiet. To say, well, this one fighting, no, they are fight. Everybody living an easy life. Quiet.
In more than 6 decades, she says she has never been robbed, never threatened. But if someone takes fruit from her yard, she sees it differently.
Now, if they come and they take 2 orange, that bother me. They take 2 coconut, I say they was hungry and they want, and they take the 2 coconut, they want 2 orange, they have, so I have, and they give them like a gift.
The 2011 population and housing census recorded 2,770 people in 814 households, 796 buildings, 53 businesses. Residents say since then, young people have left, strangers have moved in, and Biche now appears in crime statistics. But inside the village, residents say their daily battle is not with guns or marijuana. It is with economics, water, and whether the next generation can stay. Elizabeth Gonzalez, CNC3 News.
Economist Dr. Valmiki Arjun warns the recent increase in national insurance contribution rates will not stabilize the NIB fund. He says far deeper reforms, including a gradual increase of the retirement age, which was recently raised from 60 to 65, are needed. Arjun was responding to the NIB's 2025 annual report, which was laid in Parliament on Friday. He says it reveals continued financial strain. Now, Arjun notes that gradual contribution increases introduced years earlier could have reduced the need for such significant jumps in rates now. Calypsonians are pushing for an extraordinary general meeting of the Tobago Unified Calypsonians organization to address concerns arising out of Carnival 2026. Article 25 of TUCO's constitution allows for an EGM once at least 10% of financial members agree. In a release dated February 26th, members called for an updated list of financial members to be readily available to secure the requisite numbers for the extraordinary meeting request. Those members also need to sign their names to the meeting's agenda, according to Clause 2A of the Constitution. The request follows what members describe as a carnival marked by allegations President Ainsley King tried to suppress political calypsos, allegedly interfered with the Dimanche Gras results, as well as unresolved questions related to the operations and governance of the organization. King has denied all allegations.
Over 60 Calypsonians agreed to attach their names to that document. All right, and since that letter has been sent to the media, which was on Friday, just yesterday, since that time, my phone has been ringing constantly. I've been receiving calls from Calypsonians and people from different walks of life too, people who are not even involved in the culture. Because, as I said, it's not just the membership of TUCO that is dissatisfied.
The members who requested the meeting are awaiting a response from the executive. Mohammed also addressed claims the EGM's call is politically motivated, given that this is TUCO's election year.
I will be willing to offer myself to run for the position of president of TUCO in this year's election. And at this stage, I am willing to put myself forward. I'm willing to offer myself. So he may not be wrong in that regard.
CNC3 News attempted to contact TUCO's president, but calls to his cell phone went unanswered. A 200-pound hawksbill turtle has been given a second chance at life after it was entangled in a fishing net off Trinidad's southwest coast. Fishermen spotted the endangered animal and called environmental advocate Edward Moody to assist. Moody says the turtle could be about 5 years old. It measures about 90 centimeters and was checked for injuries before it was released in the shallow waters of King's Wharf. Moody warns that despite being a protected species, the hawksbill is still targeted. Ren Gopi Singh of Hunters Search and Rescue is calling on the authorities to prioritize combating the poaching of turtles and other animals as hunting season has closed.
The minister and the chief game warden and everybody put together, we had to put something in place for the next 7 months with these poachers and them is the one who destroying the forest. We as the legitimate hunters, we, trying to save the animals, trying to, make them multiply, have them. I actually have 13 goatees, what we save. And I spoke to the chief game warden and we have to come up with some solution. What we actually going to do with them, if we're going to let go them back to the wild, or if we're going to try to multiply, actually reach out to you also. And this is giving back to the forest.
This rescue comes as the nesting season begins and the authorities are promising strict enforcement against poaching. Defense Minister Wayne Sturge warns that anyone found violating the law will be punished. Still to come in sport, Eden Chiwa, Anikwa Bailey and Armani Dillon impress in TNT's Carifta trials.
Dress like you mean business. At The Working Woman, we bring you stylish, professional looks made for the modern woman. From casual to formal workwear, we've got your professional wardrobe covered.
Are you tired of the same old boring drive home from work? Look no further. Get ready for the ultimate after-work rush with Freedom 106.5 FM's The Overdrive with Davey. Mondays to Fridays from 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. Let Davey take you on a thrilling ride of non-stop entertainment and education. He covers the topics of the day, delves into the latest food and lifestyle trends, and brings dynamic guests from exciting professions to share their professional stories and experiences. Take advantage of this energizing and engaging experience. Tune into Freedom 106.5 FM, Mondays to Fridays, 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. for The Overdrive with Davey, the ultimate way to end your day with a bang.
Bowling off tonight's sport action, West Indies T20 World Cup campaign ended today after an intense Super 8 battle with India in Kolkata. Rajiv Sarat Singh has the highlights.
The Maroons' innings was a tale of two halves. Captain Shea Hope, promoted to anchor the top order, made 32 off 33 balls in a measured knock that ensured stability but perhaps cost early momentum. In contrast, Roston Chase handed the opener's role for the first time in international cricket, attacked with 40 off 25, taking on India's premier bowlers. After Shimron Hetmeyer's brisk 27 off 12 threatened to tilt the balance, India struck back through Jasprit Bumrah, whose double blow stalled the charge. At 103 for 3 after 12 overs, West Indies were well placed but needed acceleration. That surge came late and violently. Jason Holder launched a straight 6 to ignite the final push, while Rovman Powell muscled a 98-meter strike and another towering blow in a statement of Caribbean power. The pair plundered 26 runs across the 18th and 20th overs, lifting West Indies to what looked a fighting total on a surface offering grip for the spinners. Without real pace or tricky spin to defend 195, West Indies needed early wickets and steady pressure. They got off to a good start. Abhishek Sharma and Ishan Kishan were both out cheaply, and at 41 for 2, hopes were rising. But Sanju Samson stood firm. He began calmly, picking off boundaries without taking big risks, while Surya Kumar Yadav struggled for rhythm in his 18 off 16 balls. Samson kept the scoreboard moving, ensuring the required run rate never was completely out of hand. Even when Hardik Pandya fell late in the innings, there was no collapse. Shivam Dubé chipped in with 2 important boundaries. And Samson fittingly finished the match himself. A 6 and a 4 in the final over to seal the chase. He ended unbeaten on 97 from 50 balls, an innings built on control rather than chaos. Despite 2 wickets each from Shamal Joseph and Jason Holder, West Indies could not apply sustained pressure long enough to force mistakes. Rajiv Surat Singh, CNC3 Sport.
Staying with cricket, West Indies women were beaten by Sri Lanka women in the second T20 International at the National Cricket Stadium in St. George's, Grenada today. Sri Lanka clinched the match by 4 wickets after chasing down a modest West Indies total. West Indies, batting first, struggled for consistency at the crease. The home side were all out for 101 in their allotted 20 overs, with captain Hayley Matthews top scoring with 28. A regular loss of wickets stalled momentum and kept the total below par. In reply, Sri Lanka made steady progress thanks to watchful batting from Athapattu, who had 39 off 25 balls, and support from Hasini Pereira, putting together a calm partnership that guided them past the target. The win gives Sri Lanka the early advantage in the 3-match series after the opening game was abandoned due to rain. Several prospective under-17 and under-20 athletes grabbed their opportunities to be selected for Trinidad and Tobago's 2026 Carifta Games team. Here are some highlights of the big winners on day 1 of this country's Carifta trials at the Hazley Crawford Stadium.
After a morning full of promise, it was time for the finals of the first day's afternoon session. Omari Brown booked his spot on the plane with an undeniable performance in the boys under-20 110-meter hurdles. He finished in a time of 14.03 seconds, chasing the Carifta standard 14.25. Kaizen Panthers' Devonte Romeo was second in 14.70. Racing the clock, pace and performance, Anika Bailey also finished within the girls under-20 1500 meters standard of 4 minutes 50.77 seconds, crossing the line in 4 minutes 43.59 seconds, surpassing a personal best 4 minutes 51.82 in the process. Concord Athletics' Armani Dillon also made it into this country's Carifta team in 4 minutes 03.49 seconds, ahead of the 4 minutes 04.00 second requirement. Pace and performances Christopher Sammy and Justin Cadet was second and third in 406.26 and 409.39 respectively. After a 4th placed finish in the Carifta 2025 under-17 girls 400-meter final, Eden Chiwa turned on the Jets to qualify for this year's games in the same event. With the 56.27 second standard the goal, Chiwa crossed the line in 54.90. Soleil Caruth of Concord Athletics was second in 58.24. Kiana Cummings third in 58.60. She'll be joined in the middle distance contingent by Kayla Charles, after the Abilene Wildcats girls under-20 runner finished in 54.94 seconds to make the 55.20 standard. Field of Dreams Kaya Hyson was second in 56.21 and Iola Alfred third in 57.09. Burnley's Jaden Goodridge and Jaquan Douglas of Zenith pushed each other under the 10.83 standard, Goodridge winning the boys under 1700 in 10.54 seconds, Douglas second in 10.80. Among the under-20 girls, Imani Mills dipped right on the standard 11.78 seconds, winning ahead of Naomi Theodore of Phoenix in 11.86 and Zeta Charles of Point Fortin in 11.99. And in the day's curtain call boys under-20 race, Abilene Wildcats Giova Bob Semple booked his place on Team TTO with a 10.43 second performance. Trevon Stewart too, as he finished second in 10.45 seconds. Jovan Ravello, CNC3 Sport.
Thanks, Jovan. Coming up next, well, you'll have to stay with us to find out. We'll be right back.
Alejandro! What are you?
Don't miss the gripping drama Cabo. Sundays at 8 p.m. only on CNC3.
Welcome back. Several Caribbean governments are responding to the escalating conflict between Iran and the United States. Jamaica's Ministry of Foreign Affairs has urged its nationals in the Middle East to take shelter and avoid non-essential travel as tensions rise. The Bahamas has also issued a similar travel advisory to its citizens. And the regional body CARICOM says it is closely monitoring developments and stands ready to assist Caribbean nationals abroad. Now for a look at tomorrow's weather forecast. The Met Office says mostly sunny and breezy conditions are expected, with occasionally partly cloudy periods and a few brief showers. Winds could become gusty at times, especially in and around showers. Tomorrow's maximum forecast temperature is 31 degrees in Trinidad, while Tobago will experience a high of 30 degrees Celsius. Seas are moderate with waves near 2.5 meters in open waters, 1 meter to 1.5 in choppy, sheltered areas. Thank you so much for joining and staying with us for the weekend news here on CNC3. I'm Doris Polo on behalf of the rest of the team. Have a great night and a wonderful week ahead.
You're watching CNC3.
Confronting some of Trinidad and Tobago's biggest challenges, Europe has put its hand up to help. From energy transition to national security to cybersecurity. But why the renewed interest in this part of the world post-pandemic? And is Trinidad and Tobago a welcoming environment for foreign investment? My guest this week, the European Commission's Latin America and Caribbean Director, Felix Fernandez-Shaw. Mr. Felix Fernandez-Shaw, welcome to the program.
Welcome. Thanks a lot. It's a pleasure to be here with all of you in Trinidad and Tobago.
You are the Director for Latin America and the Caribbean at the European Commission. An interesting time to visit Latin America and particularly the Caribbean region. What do you hope to achieve?
We started in July the first Heads of State and Government Summit between the two regions in 8 years. We hadn't met since 2015. And we thought, well, what interests the heads of summit, the heads of government of Latin America, the Caribbean, and the European Union? And we all understood that what interests them, it's exactly the same. How do we project ourselves into the future? How do we green our economies and our societies? How do we digitalize them? And how we do it in a way that is protective, inclusive, and fair. And we thought that looking at the struggle to transform and to transition in both regions was the same. One could say that the European Union is maybe ahead or maybe more ambitious, but you cannot underestimate the challenge of greening a whole society or digitalizing it with all the new challenges and all the new benefits that that entails. So what we did at the time is we presented an investment agenda that would lead both regions into the 21st century, and thus showing to Latin America and the Caribbean what Europe could support in those two transitions, but also showing Europe that Latin America and the Caribbean is a partner of choice for greening the economy and digitalizing the society. And that is something that we managed. Now, what I'm doing here, particularly in the Caribbean, where I've stayed for the past 10 days, is precisely looking at how European investors and governments are working together to promote these transitions, to promote sustainable infrastructure, renewable energy, green hydrogen, cybersecurity, etc., etc. What problems do they have? How can we, from the public side of Europe, the Commission, the member states, how can we unlock those investments? Because these are risky investments, new technologies. We don't know how societies will respond to them. We have experience in that in Europe. It's difficult to all of a sudden pay for greening your economy. And that is what we're trying to do. We're trying to find out how the Trinidad and Tobago government, in a country where oil and gas is a main source of income and of export, how can we help the society and the government in their efforts to transition into a greener economy.
When we talk about climate change and the need for energy transition, the most major focal point for us here in Trinidad and Tobago has to be CBAM. The carbon border adjustment measures will directly affect us. We're one of the top countries, in fact, across the world that it will affect, us in Mozambique. I just wonder how much emphasis, or are we emphasizing too much on CBAM as opposed to looking at alternative sources of energy?
Well, listen, I would say that Mozambique and Trinidad and Tobago are the two most affected countries by CBAM outside Europe. Because if you count Europe, you're probably number 28 and number 29. Because in fact, CBAM is the external reflex of the internal greening of the European economy. What we are meeting here, and we're trying also to explain to the societies in Latin America and the Caribbean, is that our investors, people investing in Trinidad and Tobago, people investing in Jamaica or in Brazil, they have a corporate obligation to green their economy and green their businesses. So they're going to be held accountable in Europe for how much their global business is being greened. So when you come here and you understand that businesses like the hotels, like the port infrastructure people management, all these people need to green. Precisely that impacts Europe as much as it impacts Trinidad and Tobago. As you say yourself, this is a future-oriented measure with a climate impact. Why are we doing this? Because we believe we have to push the societies to green. And yes, it is true that that impacts heavily oil and gas economy like Trinidad and Tobago, but it also fosters and promotes the commitments of the government to go green. The government, Trinidad and Tobago as a country, has committed in the Paris Agreement to a certain decarbonization target.
I just wonder, Mr. Fernandez-Shaw, given what you are saying with regards to CBAM and its impact on a country like Trinidad and Tobago, part of your trip here is to also work on trade relations between Europe and Trinidad and Tobago. What do you see are the alternatives that Trinidad and Tobago can focus on? What are the opportunities for Trinidad and Tobago to focus on to export to Europe, a very important market for this country?
Yeah. One of the main reasons why CBAM impacts Trinidad and Tobago is because Trinidad is the largest exporter of hydrogen and hydrogen-related products, ammonia, etc., to Europe. Conceptually, as I always say, and all the engineers, me being a lawyer, all the engineers laugh when I say, when you have to produce green hydrogen, you need water, you need wind or sun, and you need an industry. You have here all those things. The most costly part of that effort is the industry, which you have. Last but not least, conceptually going from gray hydrogen to green hydrogen is about changing the plug in which you're plugging your hydrogen producing industry. Therefore, one of the main efforts that I think the government and ourselves with technology are looking for is how do we continue producing hydrogen in Trinidad, but we slowly go from gray to green. And what is the kind of renewable energy source that adapts? Is it solar? Is it wind? Is it geothermal? For example, we've worked with the government on analyzing the wind in the Southern Canal between Trinidad and the continent. There's enormous potential of wind capacity there to produce the renewable energy to power a hydrogen-producing plant.
I just wonder, Mr. Fernandez-Shaw, given the conversations that have taken place at COP28 and at the Energy Conference here last week, I know that you would have been in the Caribbean, probably read some of it in the newspapers. the thrust towards green hydrogen in Trinidad and Tobago, the conversations are there, but the action isn't. And I just wonder if you feel the European Union is the fuel that can really push this country into that green hydrogen space.
I am not, I would say, I would not like to appear to be that arrogant as we are the fuel, but I like the way you say it. In any case, we are ready, and that's part of what I'm doing here, what Europe wants to do. We are ready to unlock the technology that allows countries to transit from gray to green. If you look at, for example, this little piece that we have here, this is the Global Gateway Investment Agenda for Latin America and the Caribbean. If you look at what says here, Trinidad and Tobago, it says facilitate shift from gray to green hydrogen through a transition to renewable energy, offshore wind and solar. This is what we're doing, but that costs money. It takes investments, it takes technology, it takes risk. People have to come here with their technology and risk capital to work on a technology that we're all experimenting with.
Coming up next, what it would take to green TNT's economy.
On greening the economy, there are a certain number of energy market, electricity market reforms that need to happen.
Struggling with blood sugar swings, high blood pressure, or stiff joints? Take control with Aja Nutrition's powerful wellness trio. Berberine Plus supports healthy blood sugar. Blood pressure support helps keep your pressure in check. And Joint Aid keeps your joints moving so you can stay active every day. Don't wait. Choose Aja Nutrition for trusted, effective solutions. Available at Pennywise and leading pharmacies nationwide. Feel better, move better, live better with Aja Nutrition.
Alejandro! What are you?
Don't miss the gripping drama Cabo, Sundays at 8 p.m. only on CNC3.
So for the people of Trinidad and Tobago listening to this conversation, is it then, for them, is it then that the EU, the European Commission to be exact on your trip here, is willing to invest that money, that capital that you talk about that is so critically needed to make green energy a reality?
We are willing to invest the funds we have and rally around us the member states that have funding to, let's say, produce that result you're talking about through different actions. First action is unlocking the risk that comes with the investment in these frontier technologies, the first mover's risk. It's also the first mover's benefit, but the first thing is a risk. You bet on something that's new, you're risking. We know for a fact in Europe that this is happening. So we're doing in Europe nothing different than what we want to do in Trinidad, is support with public funding, people who are willing to risk their capital and their technology to try new solutions. We've also have conversations with the government, and we're starting to have conversations all over the Caribbean on, let's say, the jobs of the future. If you're going to green your economy, in the next 20 years, you are going to need to have technicians that work all along the value chain on sustainability assessments, electricians, people that manage power plants, people that manage the software that goes with it, people that do feasibility studies. All these kinds of things bring jobs. It's not only the management of the plants, it's all the ecosystem that runs with it. Greening an economy means also greening manufacturing industry, all kinds of energy and non-energy related. This brings jobs. For those jobs to have people, we need to train the people. And in order to train the people, we're willing to work together with the government and with our investors to organize vocational training for people who will want to work in those areas. Otherwise, the two big problems for any investment normally are the risk, the financial risk, but also having a workforce that can develop your business or your technology locally. We are trying to have a triangle: government, EU investors, and European Union public funding to unlock that work.
You as the director for the Latin America and Caribbean region, Mr. Fernandez, so I just wonder, having been doing this for a few years now, what are the hurdles and the challenges that you've been meeting across particularly the Caribbean?
Well, I would say the first one is the one everybody knows when you come to Caribbean, is a structural issue, is the size of the market and the fragmentation of the market. All investors tell me that it takes them the same effort in terms of human resources, work, etc., to build a gigantic plant in Brazil and a Trinidad size or a St. Lucia size plant in the Caribbean. It takes the same amount of work, but of course the yield and the benefits are completely different. So the first job that we have, and that I'm here to work on, is to push European investments to come to the Caribbean. Of course, these are not going to be the big global companies, but there are plenty of mid-sized companies that are already working in the Caribbean that we want to unlock their investments and help them stay or come anew to the Caribbean.
Do you find the environment healthy and welcoming for those that you are trying to encourage to invest in the region?
I think the Caribbean is quite well positioned in terms of attracting investment. But for example, on greening the economy, there are a certain number of energy market, electricity market reforms that need to happen, because as happens in Europe, the electricity market in Europe was liberalized a couple of decades ago. It was only the transmission that was stayed in public hands, but the rest of the energy business was liberalized. It's difficult to do that when you are a group of islands, because it's difficult to liberalize. Nevertheless, we find that a whole conversation between governments, energy utilities, and investors need to happen, because there's always a transition. And in that transition, there is financing, there's regulation, there is investment and technology. And that's another hurdle that we need to look at. I think the third hurdle, of course, is the fact that there is a greenium. So if you are producing electricity with one technology, which is fossil fuel, and you need to shift into another technology, which is renewable, it comes with a cost to do the same thing you were doing before, which is to produce electricity. Now, that cost in the long term will be a benefit for health, for the planet, for importing fuels, but at the same time, we need to address it now, because the high cost is at this end. It's not at the future end, it's at the short-term end. That's the other thing we're trying to do. We're trying to bring investors and governments together and use our funding to support these unlocking elements. Fourth, of course, is the workforce. If you want to green your economy, you're going to need a whole lot of people that know what they're talking about, and that are able to operate plants, the software, or give an analysis or an assessment.
We've talked a lot about green energy and greening the economy. One of the things that you are also focused on this trip is security across the Caribbean region, a very important topic, particularly crime and the transshipment of guns and ammunition. It is on the rise. But another key aspect of security is cybersecurity, something that Europe is coming face to face with as we speak. Where is your thoughts on the Caribbean region? And I was reading just in the newspaper a couple of days ago about 60% of Trinidad and Tobago businesses are vulnerable to cyber attacks.
Yeah, well, wow, that is about 17 questions in one question, so let's go one after the other. First of all, on security, we have just enlarged. We're going to launch, I think it's next month in Panama. We're going to launch El Pacto. And we're going to launch it in the Caribbean. El Pacto is the second edition of this European Union program with 4 member states. The second edition of the program is going to combine 8 member states and is going to be implemented for the first time in the Caribbean. And the reason for that is this is a program that brings together police officers, prosecutors, and judges from both sides of the Atlantic, Latin America, Caribbean, and Europe for the first time in the Caribbean, and is also going to bring for the first time, we were doing it with 4 member states, Spain, France, Italy, and Portugal, and we're now enlarging it to Belgium, the Netherlands, and Germany. The reason for this is that we believe that the officials in charge of fighting crime should talk to each other, not only for training, not only for standard protocols, but also for real operations. But in order to do that, you need to understand each other's environment, but you also need to have contacts, and you need to develop trust among institutions. This is what El Pacto does, is try to bring together the practitioners against crime, not the practitioners on crime. This, we have plenty of other people doing it. We do practitioners against crime that come together and try to build trust to be able to fight crime in a more efficient way.
So the authorities in Trinidad and Tobago overseeing national security could potentially, through this program, have the help of those from Italy, from France, from Belgium.
It's not a could have potentially, it's a will have for sure. Because that's what the enlargement of the program to the Caribbean means, is that now, for example, the federal office or the office of the prosecutor in Trinidad and Tobago can have a twinning program or can speak to the office of the German prosecutor. So that's what it does.
Up next, why the renewed interest in the Caribbean post-pandemic?
That's a good question. Why?
Visit Tire Clinic Marketing, New Truck and OTR Tire Service Center at number 30 and 32 Montrose Main Road, Chaguanas. Call today at 665-8973 or 672-3419. Alignment services available. Tire Clinic Marketing, Truck and OTR Service Center. A tire for every need.
And I'm sorry to cut you in, but given the different challenges that are faced across the Atlantic, the different constitutional systems, how do you think this could potentially work in our favor?
Well, it is a very complicated issue, but the fact of life is there are the people who protect the law and the people who violate the law. And the institutions in both sides of the Atlantic understand it very well. Then, yes, you need to understand that in some countries the prosecutor has centered competences, that in other countries it's the police or it's the judge. All this complicates the matter, but that's what this program is meant to do, is to create the understanding and to know that if you want to prosecute someone in Trinidad and Tobago, it's the police you need to talk to, or the judge, or the prosecutor. Whereas in Spain, it's a different set of it depends. We are fully respectful of every country's distribution of competences to fight crime. But what we want is to bring people together to be more efficient in combating crime. But I don't want to forget your last set of questions, particularly on cybersecurity, which is different from cybercrime. They are both related because they both work online, but it's a different kind of story. As a country with plenty of industrial infrastructure, Trinidad and Tobago must be ready for the future, for a future cyber world, and has to be of cybersecurity infrastructure. What we are working in the European Union precisely is to building an enhanced system of cooperation among the 27 member states and the 27 cybersecurity authorities who work hand in hand with the private sector. Why? Because in the digital sphere, the private sector is as interested as the public sector to make sure that the products they sell and the services they provide are fully secure for their clients. And on this, the public and the private in Europe try to work together also to stay at the edge of the technological development, because hackers are constantly moving around. This is something that we want to work with Latin America and the Caribbean on. There are some countries that are really advanced in this regard, and partnering with Europe would allow us to enhance the capacity to prevent and protect against cyber hacking, both of people, services, companies, and infrastructure. However, the first thing we need to agree, and I think on this we all agree fully, and I think we've shared that by signing in the summit the EU-LAC Digital Alliance, which is one of the projects that I showed you. We fully agree in both sides of the Atlantic that technology serves people and protects people, and not the other way around. And this is something that is very clear in the eyes of Europe and Latin America, the Caribbean. But then we need to drill down what that means. And what that means is that we need to build secure infrastructure, one that keeps the data where the data belongs. And the data belongs to the people. The data belongs to the company, the information belongs to the investors or the public institutions that generate them. They do not belong to the people running the service. And this is very important in today's times because we are seeing some different approaches to what cybersecurity is, to what 5G can do now that we're trying to connect people and things. It's very important to remain with trusted vendors and with 5G secure connectivity.
We've had a number of EU officials visit Trinidad and Tobago over the last few months. I've been privileged through the Commission to speak to a number of them, now including yourself, and I just wonder why the renewed interest in the Caribbean post-pandemic?
That's a good question. Why? Well, as I said, the summit in July gave us the opportunity to come together and gave some of us who really